Good afternoon. My name is Chip Bender, and I'm the current board chair of Beyond Housing. So I want to first start off by thanking you for all braving this chilly winter weather to join us for our AGM today. As I thought about our AGM, there were a few thoughts that came to mind that are interconnected. So I wanted to share those thoughts with you to kind of frame our meeting today. First thought, in light of the greed and the hatred that we're witnessing in different parts of our world, I am exceedingly grateful to be associated with this particular group of people who exhibit the best in humanity: compassion, creativity, and collaboration. Hopefully this AGM is a reminder to all of us of the goodness and the light that still exists in this world. You are all currently surrounded by some very wonderful people. People who think about affordable housing for other people. People who are willing to share their time and their money to help make that possible for people in our region who can't afford housing. The second thing that came to mind was a quote by Margaret, who said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Just over 25 years ago, at the initiative of Mennonite Central Committee, a small working group was formed to explore how best to respond to the need for affordable housing in Waterloo Region. And look at us now. The third thought I had as I reflected on Beyond Housing's current work and status is that we stand on the shoulders of giants. The work that we are doing now wouldn't be possible if not for the work of the board members who preceded us, who stood on the shoulders of that small working group, who stood on the shoulders of Mennonite Central Committee, who stood on the shoulders of, you get the idea. So I want to offer my gratitude to all the people on whose shoulders we stand, and remind us that all our actions have ripple effects that move us forward. I also want to offer gratitude and acknowledgement to the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Chonatan peoples who are the original inhabitants of the territory on which we sit, and who were granted this land known as the Haldimand Tract, 10 kilometers on each side of the Grand River from its source to its mouth. And the Grand River is just over there, probably like 500 meters away. This land was also protected by the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, which is a treaty for sharing and protecting resources. Now, although it might be good for the soul to spend all afternoon expressing gratitude, we do have some business to conduct. As we begin the business portion of our meeting, I want to remind you that everyone has the opportunity to participate in this meeting and ask questions, but only members can vote on the motions. Voting members have a blue agenda packet in their packet, and they'll also have member written on their name tag. So if you can determine whether you're a member or not. And then I'd like to invite Saleh, our board secretary, to the forward for the approval of last year's AGM minutes.
Thank you, Chip, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. So as board secretary, I'm looking for approval of the January 30th, 2025 AGM minutes. So here's a brief summary of the minutes which you have in your AGM packages. So we had the presentation of the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2024. We noted that assets had increased by approximately $1 million during the year. Capital assets had increased to $51.5 million, and we had also received $1.3 million in donations, and we're very grateful for that during the year. We also had the appointment of the auditor. We had the election of directors, and then we had Dan's executive director's report, which I noted. He did indicate that it was great to have good weather this year, which was last year at the same time. So I'm interested to see what he says this year. He also noted that as of 2023, Beyond Housing had 258 homes. Dan also introduced Jim Hallman, who spoke about the history of 887 Frederick Street in Kitchener. Again, we are very grateful for the Hallmans for that donation. So can I have a mover and a seconder for this? Can I have a mover first to accept this? And this mover, can you please state your name? Maureen East. Yep. And seconder? Okay, sorry, good. Thank you very much. So that's been moved. Over to Chip again. Yeah. Oh, sorry, all in favor? I missed that. Can we have all hands, please? Okay, excellent. Thanks.
Thanks, Ollie. I now invite Jennifer, our board treasurer, to the front to help us with our financial aspects.
Thanks, Chip. Members could have got a copy of the financial statements at the back if it's not in your package. And the auditor's report is in there, and I'm going to share some highlights with you. Once again, our auditor, Ed Simon, had gave us a clean audit opinion and found no anomalies in our financial accounts. He also told us working with our staff was a very positive experience, and thanks very much to Robin, Laurie, and Dan for your roles in the audit. Starting with the balance sheet, also known as the Statement of Financial Position, the balance sheet is a snapshot in time, representing the financial state of Beyond Housing at its fiscal year end August 31st, 2025. The nature of the assets and the liabilities don't change much year to year. Our assets are the buildings we own. We have some cash and investments to manage expenses and cash flow, and our liabilities are mainly in the form of mortgages on the real estate. Our total assets increased from the same time last year by about $3.7 million. This is due to the donations made in the year and an increase in debt to fund the capital assets. This is reflected in our capital assets. The increase, the total gross capital assets now sits at $62.3 million, and it represents our building before taking into account depreciation. On each of the three elements of the financial statements, we show three funds: the general fund, the replacement reserve fund, and the new projects fund, as well as the combined total of all these. This year, the new projects fund represents the New Beginnings project on Frederick Street in Kitchener. You can also see that the total assets of about $58 million. We have net assets of $29.8, which means that we have about $30 million in debt against those assets. So it's actually a very healthy balance sheet, and is a result of all your efforts over the years to fundraise and enable to invest in these buildings. All the assets, including buildings, are shown on the financial statements at cost, not the value the buildings could be sold for in today's market. And next in your package is the income statement, also called the Statement of Operations. This represents the income received and expenditures made over the course of the year ended August 31st. You can see donations and fundraising, thanks to you, doubled from last year. This is largely due to the campaign for New Beginnings. Also on the Statement of Operations, you can see total net income was $2,529,505. This number includes those donations and government grants which fund the capital assets. and the cost of maintaining the housing that has been built is covered on a cash flow basis by rents. Brings us to the third statement, the statement of cash flows. The cash balance at the end of August is much higher than the end of 2024, and this relatively high position is due to the increased loans and successful capital campaign, but it's also just before we start spending that money on building the New Beginnings project. I'll just pause and see if there's any questions. Sure.
The general plan shows a loss of $500,000. Is that a big deal?
Okay, so it's really because of depreciation, which is depreciation, so it's a non-cash flow. So it does look a bit distorted, but basically this is run based on cash. Okay. All right. If there aren't any further questions, we'll move to the motion. Next slide. So the motion on the table is that the audited financial statements for Menno Homes, Inc., operating as Beyond Housing, for the fiscal year ended August 31st, 2025, be received as presented. Okay, thank you. Carl's there, thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? John Enns, thank you. All in favor? Okay, looks like it's passed. Thank you. Then the final order of the financial business is appointing the auditor for next year. And so the motion is that we appoint Mr. Ed Simon, CPA Professional Corporation, as the auditor for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Margaret, thank you. And do we have a seconder? Nick, thank you. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. I think it's back over to Chip.
Thank you, Jennifer, for taking us through that. This brings us to the board slate. As you can see, our wonderful board members. There are no changes to our board for 2026, so I just want to offer my thanks to this dedicated and delightful group of people that I get to spend a couple hours with once a month. I also want to thank the many staff of Beyond Housing. Dan, our executive director, Lori, our administrative assistant, who makes all this happen with some other help, Taylor, our operations manager, Robin, our bookkeeper, Sue, our community support worker, Karen, our community nurse, Beth, who has been recently hired as our new community engagement specialist, and then a whole bunch of superintendents and cleaners for all our buildings, including Sean and Lisa, who I met earlier, Alfred, who I saw here, Linda, Laura, and Cliff. Thank you all for all the work that you do. And before we give an opportunity for questions and conclude the business portion of our meeting, there is one more person I want to thank. So I'd like to invite Martin up to the front at this time. Yeah.
Who's that?
You can come on up.
Okay.
I need to turn this. Martin was part of that small group of thoughtful and committed citizens that I mentioned earlier to gather to discuss affordable housing in Waterloo Region. And then 25 years ago, Martin began as the founding president of then Menno Homes. And 13 years ago, when Martin stepped away from that role, the board at the time decided that they would like to acknowledge Martin's contribution to the then young and maturing organization by bestowing upon him the title of President Emeritus. Now, although the title is only an honorific with no specific duties,
or no money.
No money, no. I don't think you got paid much as the president either, but.
I did not.
And a little aside, when I called Martin last week, Menno Homes showed up on my phone, and I asked Martin why that was. He said, well, when we started, we didn't want any extra business expenses, so I just used my home phone number as the Menno Homes number, and he said Dan and he have been trying to get rid of that, not unsuccessfully. So
I still occasionally get calls of inquiries about rental opportunities. Yes.
So even though it doesn't have any specific responsibilities, we've still utilized Martin's gifts. Dan continues to meet with Martin periodically to glean from his wisdom and leadership. And Martin has continued to be interested in and to support the work of Beyond Housing. For instance, 2 years ago, to commemorate his 85th birthday, Martin set the goal of raising $85,000 for
Spruce Lawn.
right, for the outspoken
Right.
the Bike-a-thon fundraiser. Not $8,500, $85,000, which he far surpassed. So now at 87, Martin would like to be relieved of further responsibilities.
Yes.
And I tried to convince Martin he could keep the title and not feel the need to contribute at all to the same level that he has been. But Martin is the kind of guy who throws himself into whatever responsibilities he has, so he preferred to be relieved of the title. And I made a deal with Martin that we would relieve him of the title only if we got to acknowledge his contributions again today, which he reluctantly agreed to. So Martin,
Yes.
we would like to relieve you of your President Emeritus status and any responsibilities that you continue to carry
Right.
with that status. But before we do that, we want to offer our thanks. Thank you for being part of that small group
It was
of
wonderful.
thoughtful,
Yeah.
committed individuals who began to dream of the possibilities of offering affordable housing in our region. Thank you for being our first president and setting a good foundation and a good path for us. And thank you for the many ways that you continue to contribute to this organization through mentoring Dan and for raising lots and lots of money as a cyclist. So on behalf of the board, I want to offer some small gifts as a token of our appreciation.
Edible or bankable?
I'm pretty sure one's edible, and I think one might be wearable.
Wearable.
And I invite us all to share our appreciation for the contributions that Martin has made. And I know you'll get to share something,
But I want to say something
but you
right
can
now.
say something right now,
Right
too.
now, this
Yeah, for
instant.
sure.
Yes.
I was going to give you that opportunity.
Okay. On this high note of the first working group that led to the board, that led to the implementation of the vision, I just want to say I've never had an experience like that in my whole life. Working with a startup group from scratch, no money in the bank, just a vision, and I'll talk about that later. And I will be eternally grateful. Now, that's a long time, isn't it? But I've been wondering if it's long enough to express my gratitude for all those who were in the working group and on the boards that I served with. And then just one clarification. President back then was like executive director, in case you're wondering. It wasn't elected, it was, I guess I was hired.
You were.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
Thanks again, Martin. You can sit down.
He says I can sit down.
We could probably end the meeting here and all feel good and go home and not glow, but there's more. First, any questions about anything that was offered in the meeting? If not, we'll conclude this part of the business meeting, and I'll turn it over to Dan, our Executive Director, for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Chip, and I will also take a moment to thank the board for your volunteer work and the work that you do behind the scenes on the various committees to keep me in line and to make sure we're focused on the path ahead of us. So thank you for the work that you're doing now, and again to the staff for doing all the work to set up today and everything that goes along with that as well. This job for me keeps getting easier, so that's good. To kick off this portion of the meeting, an update, I guess, on the Frederick Street project. Last year at this time, Jim Holman got up, he announced the project, and now we are under construction, and I'm going to ask Jim to come forward again with a bit of an update. And so there he is. While he's doing that, I'll comment on the weather, because apparently that's what I need to do as well. It's snowing outside.
Good afternoon. Good to come out on such a nice snowy day. I've got a bit of a drive this afternoon, so I'm going to hop out right after this. But anyways, I really appreciate the chance to join you today and to give you a bit of an update. I want to say a huge thank you to every donor, partner, volunteer, staff, member who contributed to this campaign. Because of you, 20 new townhomes are being built, some for women and children who have experienced domestic violence. These homes won't just provide shelter. In partnership with Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region, they'll give these families support, safety, and a chance to start again. This project obviously touched a lot of people's hearts, and the results have been amazing. Not only have you helped us surpass our goal of $2 million, you've done even more. In the original proposal to the Region of Waterloo, the budget only allowed for some units to be deeply affordable. But thanks to your generosity, every unit in this new project now meets that standard. For sure. And donations that are still coming in, any funds that aren't needed for the new beginnings, project will go to future beyond housing projects. Forgot where I was. So even more families will be helped eventually. As I've mentioned before, this project is personal for my family. In 1931, during the Depression, my grandfather Anson lost our family home in Preston to creditors. It's a long story, won't go into it, but that experience showed us how fragile housing security can be. But now, 95 years later, the home in Kitchener that my dad built and my mom lived in for close to 70 years, and where my brothers and sister and I grew up, will help new families. Growing up, my parents taught us the importance of working together and caring for our community. These things are important to Beyond Housing as well. The New Beginnings Project is a perfect example of what can happen when organizations and community members work side by side. Together, we've turned one home into many, and we're helping families move forward. Thank you.
And thank you again to Jim and the entire Holman family and everyone who's contributed to make this a success. We are looking forward to I have to absorb that because I'm always looking forward to what's next. But let's live in the moment and be thankful for what we have right now, which is a building that's actively under construction. We are looking at completion of construction in September, October, sometime this fall, and very excited about that. The partnership with Women's Crisis Services and obviously with all of you as well. So that corner of Frederick and Victoria is a bit of a nightmare in terms of construction right now. If you can kind of get past there, but if you haven't been able to do that, we are keeping an ongoing photo update on our website as well. So there's ways to kind of keep an eye on things and make sure that we're actively at work there. Martin, we're going to ask you to come forward again. So quite a number of years ago, Martin gave a speech. I don't actually recall, Martin, I wasn't there. What was the event? You can share that. So we are going to provide a bit of an update on that speech.
In 2004, Mary Bales and I were honorees at the mayor's dinner of the Working Center, and Carl is here, one of the mayors who nominated the two of us. And I gave this speech about the impossible dream. So this is a slightly reduced version of that speech.
Microphone, Martin?
Oh, we're going to need you to get a little bit closer there. There.
Do you have to repeat everything? You heard Carl's there, Mayor? Okay. Checks off, checks off. So do I proceed now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
And I will note that I thought I had large print. Yours is even larger than mine. So
So are my bifocals. Okay. Just curious, how many of you may have been at the mayor's dinner in 2004? Mm-hmm. Okay. Here we go. The lyrics to The Impossible Dream could have been written for Menno Homes, now Beyond Housing, could have been written 25 years ago as an exclusive lyric just for them. Especially the lines, "This is our quest to follow the stars." Whose song is it, The Impossible Dream? The original answer was, it is the song of the man from La Mancha, one mad Don Quixote. Long in the tooth, Don Quixote lived to make the world a fairer and juster place. A person of few resources, the old Don employed what he had available to right the wrongs. The Impossible Dream? It was our song in 2001. It is our song in 2026. Here in Waterloo Region, we have collectively experienced a visionary dream to provide affordable housing long before the rest of the country. Before the senior levels of government committed dollars, our Waterloo region had the guts to reach for the stars. In its first ambitious initiative, it reached for 1,000 rental units under the Affordable Housing Partnership Project to be in place by 2005, and they exceeded it. Waterloo Region has a distinction of being the first in all of Ontario to obtain pilot funding for community rental housing. Why is this significant? Because the data shows there's a critical link between health, education, and housing. Good housing, defined as safe, secure, stable, and affordable, is the rock on which all futures are built. Not all fortunes are built, all futures are built. Good housing enhances the prospects for all children of whatever social class to enjoy better education, health, and livelihoods. We are the stakeholders, whatever our place in the community, in the welfare of our community. The man from La Mancha, he knew that, as did the prophet Jeremiah, the welfare of the city. In focus groups, Menno Homes met families whose hope it was to raise their kids in safe neighborhoods, in housing that met the codes, where there was light enough and quiet enough for their kids to read and study, so their kids could become healthy and productive members of society. Can you hear that resonant refrain? This is our quest, to follow the star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far. Whose song is that? Who will claim that song? Well, it's been my unspeakable blessing to personally know legions of affordable housing champions who joined the Menno Chorus, the Menno Homes Chorus, sorry to Brandon Lease, who joined the Menno Homes Chorus in 2001. Some have been laid to rest, but many more continue to be stirred by the power of that song. New champions are appearing every year, expressing their desire to join the quest to reach for the stars.
For example, 1 year ago, we launched an exciting new relationship with Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. We are building safe, affordable homes in Kitchener that, with our combined efforts, will support women and children who have experienced domestic violence. Thanks to this partnership and the support of government funders and the generosity of our community, 20 new townhomes will welcome those families this fall. Our quest continues with new projects that are currently at different stages of the planning phase. These include a 30-unit apartment building in Elmira that we hope will be shovel-ready this fall. And we are exploring a new chapter in our relationship with Waterloo Kitchener United Mennonite Church. We have plans to redevelop their location at George Street in Waterloo to build a 6-story apartment building next to the 46-unit apartment building that Waterloo Mennonite Homes donated to us in 2020. The new building would include approximately 75 residential units and space for WK, as well as some new community partners. Beyond Housing completed the development here at 544 Bridgeport in 2020, and we continue to look at Phase 2. In partnership with Parents for Community Living, we hope to build a 6-story building with 48 residential units, as well as space for PCL's head office and programs. And we are also working with Elmira Mennonite Church to develop a corner of their property and create 60 residential units. And in addition to all of this, there are other conversations taking place that could create even more much-needed affordable housing in Waterloo Region. If our dream comes true, we could double the number of people who call a Beyond Housing or apartment their home over the next few years. But just like Don Quixote's had his windmills, we have challenges to face: rising costs for labor and materials, increased competition and uncertainty related to government funding, and most recently, the region's freeze on new development due to uncertainty about future water capacity. These are big windmills to battle, but with your help, we can overcome them. How? You can consider unrestricted gifts that go where needed most, or monthly gifts that help provide stable funding. You can add your voice to calls for local government to invest in water capacity. You can attend council meetings, public consultations, or delegations when housing projects or servicing decisions are on the agenda. And you can share our stories by reposting, forwarding, or talking about Beyond Housing's projects to build community support.
Before I continue with my part, I'd just like to say that it makes me very happy to share the stage with Dan. We together symbolize the first 25 years of leadership at Menno Homes Beyond Housing. Just wanted to say how appreciative I am of the harmonious relationship in the transition.
Thank you.
The affordable housing cause, to be viable and sustainable, needs the support of all levels of government and all sectors of society. It needs for-profits and not-for-profits as providers. Dear friends, this great quest is ours. With our very last ounces of courage and willpower, let us reach for the stars. Let us devote our creative energy to achieving the impossible dream, the vision of affordable housing for all. Thank you.
Thank you. As Chip said earlier, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and there goes one right now. So I'm going to ask Martin to take a chair here, and a couple of other giants will join him, Margaret, Nally, and Rick Cober Bauman. I would ask you to come forward as well. We are going to do the hard work of trying to recap 25 years in 25 minutes, and I know that's not going to be possible. But we will do our best to keep things moving along and to share a bit of our story. So this is our fireside chat. Yeah. Everybody comfortable?
Yes.
My staff gave me what was called the lumpy chair. I'm not sure how to take that. So this is a picture of the working group. So I have prepared a bunch of questions, and we are going to try to move along rather quickly. I know that they will be somewhat prepared for this, and we'll see where our conversation leads. And I'm going to start with Rick. Rick, can you share a little bit about what you were hearing that eventually led to the creation of this working group?
Well, thanks, Dan. I was working at MCC Ontario at the time. I was a program director, and I remember reading the record and consistently seeing reports of really low vacancy rates and particularly low availability of affordable housing. And here I have to mention a little sort of minute but big piece about MCC that wasn't widely known, but Martin and I talked about it all the time. And that's that we had a revenue sharing agreement that every dollar raised, 80 cents of that dollar, Dan will remember this, 80 cents of that dollar went to MCC Canada for International Program. So how would you like to work with your hand behind your back, Dan, fundraising for Menno Homes, where 80 cents of every gift that was given didn't build affordable housing? So we knew from the start that MCC couldn't do this, but it seemed like it would make sense that MCC as an organization would get behind it. But what we really needed was a person with some experience and some stature in the community. So I found this guy's number.
And you just called him up?
Yeah, I called him up cold. We knew each other, but
We did, yes.
but not that well.
No, we didn't play hockey together.
Nor pickleball.
You're playing pickleball now?
I am actually. So it was a shot in the dark, dare I say that, with a bunch of Mennonites here, but and it landed well. It was a good timing for our brother here, Martin, and he'll say more about that.
So Martin, then what was your response when Rick called you?
Right. Well, after House of Friendship, I told myself if I was going to get re-involved in community work, it would preferably be affordable housing. And I reminded myself I had accrued a lot of assets, and like the steward of the Bible, I didn't want to plant it in the ground and just let it decay. So my accrued assets were education, experience, and expertise. So when Rick called, I was primed and ready. That's it.
That's it. That's just you were waiting for.
Primed and ready.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. I'm glad you were. They say luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So we had the good luck of finding you at that time. And Margaret, what were you hearing in the community?
Well, I had the great fortune of serving on the board of Mennonite Central Committee Ontario and also serving on the board of the YWCA. And for many of you, you know that they serve the needs of women and children in downtown. So it was a shelter for people who were unhoused. It was a temporary place. They did their best, but a terrible place for women and children to actually try and advance into life. So I was at the building, 50 Kent, in what we often thought was a nightmare, which was the basement, but actually that nightmare was a place of many dreams being fomented for good things to happen. And I was invited into the conversation. It was an important time for MCC because the strategic thinking of the time was not only to do the work overseas, but to pay attention to poverty in our own region. So it was just a very opportune time to be invited into a conversation where these two agencies cared for people, and I was just one of the voices and one of the listeners that was willing to enter into the conversation.
And you're also one of the supporters. I went back and checked. Just for fun. You were donation number 159 at the very early stage.
I could see the need more probably.
Rick beat you by 5.
Yeah, but probably not in amount.
Yeah. So here, next slide then, our first project at Village Road to Martin. When I look at these pictures, I'm struck by a couple of things. First of all, that your hard hat is different color than it was in the working photo picture. So I'm assuming you got some sort of promotion along the way. And secondly, when I do the math, in this picture, you're only a couple of years older than I am right now, which tells me I have a lot of work yet to do. And you're much better looking. And finally, that you appear to be pounding into the ground a little signpost that the building permit would normally go on. What were you thinking at this stage?
I felt exhilarated to have reached this stage in this quick period of time. In 2001, I think by September we were a nonprofit and a charitable both, so we could receipt the donations. But the stars had aligned. There were so many convergences, like Faith Lutheran selling surplus land, and we faced a very defiant NIMBY on Village Road. And then a person emerged from the neighborhood. I know her name, Wendy Shaw. Wendy Shaw, who became a bridge builder between their fears and our ambitions. So we listened and reduced the scale of the project from, I think, 24 to 16 units. And I would also like to say both Pastor Hamp from Faith Lutheran and myself personally experienced overt hostility. And Wendy got us through that. And I want to read something, if I can park this with you. Here we go. This is from Wendy, a neighbor on Village Road. And in the 10-year history booklet, this is the quote I want to read. "We are now all part of the same neighborhood where people say hello to one another as they walk up the sidewalk and take the time to talk about anything from gardening to children. Anyone who moves into our neighborhood would have no idea of the controversy that originally existed with the idea of building the village on our streets." So just another footnote, research shows that when you follow up on NIMBYs objecting to particular projects, 5 to 10 years later, it's been assimilated, and there's very little ripple effect left over.
We've experienced that here at this building as well. Neighbors coming up after the fact and being thankful that we built this here. So it is worth getting through that hard work. So Rick, I'm looking at this picture again. Unlike Martin, in this picture you're actually much younger than I am.
But not better.
I'm not going to comment on your looks. You were working at MCC Ontario, but also on the board of Menno Homes, and you could have easily launched the working group and then carried on with your regular daily work. What drew you to being actively involved on the board until 2008?
I think it was partly knowing that Menno Homes was young, didn't yet have a really strong foothold, or not a lot of people knew about it. MCC had by then, 90 or so years of history, and at least in our constituency was fairly well known. So it seemed wise that, like in the beginning, it made sense for more years for MCC to keep launching, helping launch Menno Homes well. So I think that's a big reason that I stayed involved.
Well, we certainly benefited from that involvement and from the connection to MCC. That really helped us gain a foothold in the constituency. At the time, they said, traction. Menno Homes, the name was selected to help get traction. And we said we can always change it later. And we did, but it took a little while.
And Dan, when I look back, I think if we had tried to do this as MCC, it would have floundered. It would never have grown to anywhere near the size it is, because of some of those limitations that MCC has around international programming. It needed to be released and grow the way it has.
Mm-hmm. Good. And Margaret, and you were in the community, so not yet on the board at this point when they're post-pounding here. What were you hearing?
Well, because we were aware that there wasn't a lot of affordable housing being built, there was a great sigh of relief for the people that I spoke to, that someone finally got there was a sector that needed attention, and it was those people who are vulnerable, people who were able to manage to a certain extent, provided that things didn't go catastrophically wrong with their lives. So it really was serving a particular niche of people. And I know you and I talked about the banana skins, which is... It's terrible. It's a sector that of vulnerability of housing that only takes very little to tip us into the place of no home or a place where you don't belong. So that was the sector that I heard a great relief from, that they felt they were being heard.
Yeah, people who are one banana slip away from falling into poverty, one paycheck sometimes it's referred to, but just something happens and then through no fault of their own, they're looking for home. So then we moved along from Village Road to 1420 King Street. And this picture was taken in May of 2006, just a couple of years after Village Road. So incredible progress. You joined the board, Margaret, in May of 2005, so just a year prior to this. And here you are a year later leading the site dedication at Rockaway Gardens Village. What does it mean to you to go through that ceremony?
Well, you'll notice I'm still wearing the same jacket. I'm thrifty. I'm believing in continuity. We're still there, but in new ways. I really strongly believe that we are so inundated when you get into building with permits and governance and fundraising, and it takes a lot of work to build these magnificent buildings. It's really important to stop, stand still, recognize the community we're in, to honor the earth and the one who called us into the great work. And that's what I felt was needed to bless the work we were about. The board table was incredibly busy. Building committee were working at maximum. The fundraisers were out there. We needed to stop and give thanks and praise. But the important thing about this, too, was this was a brownfield. And I don't think we realized it at the time until we were quite far along the project. So it was also a blessing of the soil, that it would be remediated and healthy, and that lives would be restored and made well through living at this place.
Note, Carl is here. He directed me to Carl is here, Mayor. He directed me to the city resource for brownfields remediation.
So it was a blessing for transformation of the soil and for lives. And I really do think that's the work of Menno Homes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for leading that. That's an important thing to remember to do, to slow down. I'm always running, and I got to stop sometimes and just slow down. Yes, and the land, right? It was the former site of the garage, the Grand River Transit maintenance garage was dirty. They sold it to us for $10, and I always understood that normally these things sell for $2. So not only did they sell you dirty land, but they saw you coming.
Fiscally responsible mayor.
So Rick, this picture's taken less than 2 years after Village Road was completed, and you're now embarking on a very major construction project. It must have felt satisfying that Village Road wasn't just a one-off project, right? You didn't launch this thing and they did it and then that was it. But this new organization was gaining some momentum and could have a real impact. So what were some of the joys and challenges that you saw on the board during that period?
Well, I'd say a major joy was thinking we maybe had found a recipe. Martin talked earlier about this thing starting from scratch. We talked about the resistance that there had been in the neighborhood on Village Road. So we'd seen a lot of heavy sledding already in those first couple projects, but the success relatively quickly meant that we were onto something. This was not going to be a one-off, a flash in the pan, but it looked like we had some sustainability. And the community, the donations were coming in well. I think it's fair to say, I was sitting with Jim Hallman for a minute before he came up here, and I pointed at the line in the agenda about the project and said, how's this going? And he started telling me about the challenges of building in a tough winter like this. And I said, no, I meant the fundraising. Oh, that's a piece of cake, he said.
He's gone, isn't he? He left already. Martin, do you have anything to add to Rick's comments? Yeah.
Yes, I just want to mention the C's of success. There are 2 C's in success, but there are many more in the real world. And they include communication, consultation, cooperation, coordination, collaboration, and today, after 25 years, celebration. The C's of success. They guided us in the process.
So Rockway Gardens was completed in the summer of 2007. And later that year, your wife and soulmate, Pauline, passed away. I'm sure you were devastated. And you were in your late 60s, and people would have understood if you would have stepped back at that point. And while there was a pause, you continued with the original mission of Menno Homes. So I don't have a specific question. I simply want to acknowledge that in the midst of your own personal grief, you continued to devote your energy to making our community a better place for everyone.
There's no tissues nearby, so I'll share some comments nevertheless. The only way I could say yes to Rick when he called was to bring Pauline along. I was a computer dinosaur. I'd never done an email in my life to that point. And Rick agreed that if I would write out the notes, Pauline could transcribe them.
I think we called them we-mails then, right?
We-mail.
I was just getting there. So instead of emails, we were we-mailing. So when Pauline passed away, the we-mail ended, and I learned for the first time how to do an email. When Pauline passed away, the we-mails ended, so it was either resign from Menno Homes or sit down at the keyboard and learn how to do an email, which I did.
Yeah.
But at that time, I missed the first annual meeting I ever missed, and Shirley Redicup was present to present the need for larger families, which included many Mexican Mennonite families. And when I saw the minutes, I felt a stirring that this would be very therapeutic for me to get my mind off my own wretchedness and do something to relieve the wretchedness of others. So it was extremely therapeutic and healing for me.
Thank you. That is a nice lead-in, I guess, to our next section here, barn raising on Pondview. So, Margaret, in 2000, and as Martin's already mentioned, in 2007 at the November annual meeting, Shirley Redicup challenged Menno Homes to respond to the urgent need for affordable housing in the rural areas of Wellesley and Woolwich, where she was an outreach worker. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I think we're all very aware when we walk downtown Kitchener-Waterloo, you can see it very clearly, how the depth of poverty we live in our community. I think it's so much more hidden in our rural communities. Unless you are someone like Shirley who works at outreach or works at social services, and she was very engaged at the time with House of Friendship and then moved on to the Woolwich Community Centre, and she was very aware of the depth of poverty that is hidden in our rural areas, people living in substandard housing, large families, people who had come here to farm labour predominantly, but also there was a whole body of other people, older people who didn't want to leave the rural areas to come into downtown Kitchener-Waterloo to secure housing. They'd rather stay where their children were or grandchildren were in Elmira and St. Jacobs, Wellesley area. And so she challenged us to think about poverty as not the obvious that we see on our streets downtown Kitchener, but to look under the covers and to be aware of the silent and slow suffering that she was very aware of. So I really appreciated her direct approach to us to pay attention, to look better, to look broader than what we might naturally have been inclined to do.
It was a good challenge that led to a lot of new houses.
Very positive challenge. And I think it's really important to have a presence in the rural areas. I mean, I enjoy passing through Elmira and St. Jacobs and knowing that we have a presence in those places where you pay attention, that people want to age in place or people want to live their lives in schools in smaller communities. We're not all called to larger urban areas, and they need attention also, the families there.
So Martin got back on the horse and put some applications into the region of Waterloo. You were successful. You were able to purchase 2 lots on Pondview and Wellesley. And then this barn raising happened. Tell me about that.
Okay. Is my sound on this time?
Yeah, just keep it close to your mouth.
Okay. Couple of things, and some of them relate to the letter C again. The 2 lots in Wellesley were the lots owned by Mike Voles of Blaze Property, his children. And they were open to selling their lots because they weren't seeing themselves building there for themselves. So cooperation and consultation with Mike. And then further conferencing and consulting with Reverend Jacob Reimer from Aylmer, the Old Colony Mennonite Church there, about 1,000 members. Is that a little high? Maybe too high? But Reverend Jacob was a member of the MCC Ontario board, and I went down to Aylmer to seek his blessing on Wellesley in the event that some Old Colony families might move in there. He readily and with great enthusiasm gave his blessing and said, I will help find you volunteers to help you on a weekend barn racing. That's how it happened. Mm-hmm. And they came from Aylmer, from Moorfield, from St. Catharines, from wherever there were Old Colony churches for a weekend barn racing, which was erecting the frame and putting on the roof.
It was a great celebration, but also some anxiety about the level of risk that some of the board members thought might have been possible there.
Yeah, the safety harnesses up there are hard to see, Dan.
Yes.
I photoshopped them out. They were distracting. So, Rick, you had left the board at this point, which is probably why there were no safety harnesses on there, because I know you're so safety conscious. You left the board just as this new project was getting started, presumably because you had taken on the new role as executive director with MCC Ontario. But I think we both know, because it was that you had also just hired me and realized how much extra work I was going to be. So you're no longer involved directly, but I certainly recall you dropping by, or Martin dropping by your office from time to time. What was that all about?
We were getting you ready, Dan. I was still pretty passionate about what was happening in Menno Homes, and had a deep friendship with Martin, and so we checked in lots. But you're right. Formally, I had stepped aside and didn't really know we were grooming you.
Oh, just totally indifferent style here. Rick and I usually have a summer picnic together. We still see each other.
Good.
Just to solve the problems of the world.
And to be quite honest, I was on the board of MCCO, and you were working for MCCO, and I was also on the hiring committee for Menno Homes. You could see it got a little bit. I know how good this. Oh, but MCCO needs you. So it was I knew you were the best person for this job, and thank you. You have been, but at the time I had to check my moral compass about all that. You know.
Well, thank you, Margaret. So in 2011, it was actually more cost effective to purchase some existing housing in Elmira than to build new. So that's exactly what you did. We see you here with David, Martin I'm talking about. We see you here with David and Maria, and you'll be happy to know that they are still calling Stillwater their home. The children have grown but are still at home, and affordable housing has meant a stable home for them. Not having to switch schools or always having to be the new kid in class. They have done quite well.
Right. I would like to acknowledge Bonnie and Claire at this point, because Bonnie facilitated me finding those units on Stillwater. And then, of course, they were, as we note further down, project managers for one of our builds.
It's good to have friends.
Where are you, Bonnie and Claire?
There, yeah. So, and then the image on the right is of the Skills Canada students at Elmira District Secondary School starting out to build semis on Centre Street, another unique partnership that provided a hands-on experience for the students and volunteers that participated. And once again, yes, Bonnie and Claire helped project manage that and helped us find that location. So moving along to David Street. Later in 2011, with Bonnie's help, we purchased some land in Elmira, and it was a double lot. So there was an existing house on there and room for one more. And another creative solution resulted in some former student housing in Waterloo being repurposed as affordable housing. 2 stories went to Elmira and the third to Wellesley. Martin, how did that happen?
Okay, this was kind of cooperation. Forget the last name of the brothers.
That was Greenwich.
Yeah. One of them worked for Anselma House as property maintenance, and he was a co-owner of this student housing on King Street on Waterloo, I think 6 stories high. And they had received a not to be turned down offer from a developer who wanted to tear down the building and replace it with about 20 stories. So they offered it to Anselma House, and they were not in a position to do anything with it. They referred them to Menno Homes. Okay. That's how we got connected. So another C, connection.
Connections.
Right. And it took a lot of negotiating to make this happen. I don't know if it was entirely always satisfactory, because we didn't have a 100 detail defined contract on it, so there were some gray areas. But in the end, 2 units got to Elmira and 2 got to Wellesley. And they paid the expense of the flatbed and the hydro shutdown as it travels along the road.
Yeah, creative would be another C.
Yeah.
Crazy would fall in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Margaret, you're on the board at this time, and you're not a construction person. What you're sitting around the board table, and they're talking about putting a house on a truck and moving it around. What are you thinking?
Concern, yes. The bottom line, there was a whole lot of concern about how this was going to be seen, too, by the community. This was a huge diversion from anything we've ever done, to have this parade of buildings taken up from the ground and transported it through the town to another town. I mean, it's exciting now, but at the time there were lots and lots of questions. We needed the faith of our friend Martin to actually make that happen, because it was a huge challenge to make that happen. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I really love the work of Menno Homes, the building. I mean, I'm not a builder. Absolutely wouldn't know what to do with a hammer. But I did love our philosophy of building well and building respectfully and building with dignity for the people who live there. You know, I love the environmental concerns that the building committee would work through to get us the best and most beautiful place for people. I love the conversation we had with Brian Shantz about Juliet windows when we couldn't afford balconies, and those kinds of things animated my soul, because I felt we're not just building housing, we're building home. And home is more. Home has a whole lot of connection to others. It's beauty and belonging, and that's what Mena Homes was trying to do. So the flatbed was part of the joy of that.
Right.
After all those years.
So on that note of building homes, not just houses, from the very beginning in our template we included a budget item for support worker to help facilitate community building, to help neighbors resolve their conflicts peacefully. And Sue is probably here, is she?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right
she's
back.
still in that role. Hi, Sue. Going back to then.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that encapsulates what we try to do perfectly, right? Build so that people can have dignity where they live, provide the supports that they need, and it doesn't start with a C, but sustainability as well. Capacity. I mean,
Capacity.
the model that you built
Right.
was that fundraising goes towards new construction, a portion of the rent covers our overhead, and that keeps us sustainable from project to project. And that has weathered the test of time,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think that was a very different model, that we put that out as a priority. We didn't want to burden the tenants or defeat our own model of affordability. So fundraising to put as much in the forward phase so that the tenants could live responsibly and reasonably was an objective too. Right.
Which brings us to 2013. So, Martin, now you're 74 years old in this picture, a little younger than you are right now, but in the prime of your life, with so much more to do, and yet you felt it was the right time to step back. How did you know that?
I didn't entirely know it then, but I know it now because of the succession and the transition and all the capacity that was unleashed, Dan, under your direction, with the support of the board and the community, and all the churches that have surplus to deal with property and land. So certainly confirmed in hindsight, but at the time, I was 74, and we had done 10 years, 100 units, 10 million in housing stock. I didn't want the load any longer, take it to bed every night, to be the first point of contact. I was ready just to give it to a fresh energy source. And look how it turned out.
Well, you left space. And Margaret, you've been involved in a number of transitions. So what's your reflection on that period?
I think that at the absolute core was a shared value system. Martin had been an extraordinary leader, but he didn't hold the vision. He shared the vision and incorporated it and invited us in, and we had a sense of belonging to the wholeness of it all. So he decided to leave, but he didn't take the vision with him.
Right.
We were all stakeholders and protectors and supporters of what had started, and we wanted the very best for this organization and the very best people to animate it forward. And we knew there was a time to go forward. We were quite excited about 100 units. It was always a goal that at that point we'd be sustainable. We could afford a decent salary for our staff. But we realized, the needs for people were far exceeded 100 units in this community. So we needed energy and invigoration and commitment to go further. So the transition was actually really a very positive thing. Martin left. He didn't leave his ego behind. He kept walking with us, with Dan, into the new becoming that we needed to be to grow into the next level. Nick Dreger did amazing work in helping us formulate policies, procedures, into helping us become a fully formed, really competent organization that could navigate very complex systems and large bodies of money and buildings. So we built the resources based on when Martin was ready to leave, we were ready to walk into a new era with Dan and continue the dream into the next phase. So it was one of the best transitions I've seen.
I do remember one of the questions I had during the interview process, which was whether you had your board governance in place, all your policies and things, because I said that is not what I do. So I was really happy to see that that was taken care of.
For one whose area of expertise is not making policies, it's a brutal process for that person. But for Nick Treatier, it was magic.
Yes, there's Nick.
Yeah. And I want to acknowledge, in terms of capacity, Doreen Rudy Snyder is here, and she was the very first support worker that we had. Always we're looking for the capacity within the board members themselves, and that's what really brought us forward to all these units. How many hundreds now?
258 right now. Yeah.
Because of the capacity of the board members that were all put to work to achieve those goals.
It was there was a common vision and held respectfully around the table and with the various agencies in government. And I think that helped the transition too. There were no rapid changes of course. And that helped us have assurance that we were continuing on the trajectory.
Continuity.
Yeah. Continuity, great. Another one.
Well, and I'll take a moment to thank you, Martin, for that. The way you gracefully helped, stepped back, were there when I needed a call, but didn't micromanage or didn't get into the details of what we were doing moving forward. And
so I did pull that off.
You did, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Which brings me to Rick, Brother Rick. It was you that let me know that Martin was retiring, and if I recall correctly, the subject line of the email that you sent me was something like, "It looks like there will be some changes at mental homes."
See.
And then you shared a link to the story. And in hindsight, I'm not sure that was the most subtle way to tell me that I should be looking for a new job. I don't have a question, really. I just wanted to state that for the public record. Yeah.
I don't remember if you had finished raising all the money yet for the new 50 Kent. We were building at 50 Kent right about then.
I hadn't yet at that
point. No, you walked
though.
out on me, didn't you?
I think we hit the number we needed before I left.
I believe we did. No, I was happy to bless you on your way.
So post 2013, and in the interest of time, we're going to carry on here. So let's move a little more quickly over what was essentially what I would refer to as the second half of the last 25 years. In 2015, we partnered with Woolwich Community Services to acquire a property in Elmira, which they built their building on, and we created 25 new homes at the Foundry in 2017. That year, we also entered into a 10-year lease agreement with St. Jacob's Mennonite Church for this house next to the church. In 2020, in partnership with St. Paul's Lutheran Church and Parents for Community Living, we started construction on this building right in the midst of COVID. That same year, Waterloo Mennonite Homes donated their 46-unit building to us so that we could continue their legacy of providing affordable housing in downtown Waterloo. 2021 saw the completion of 544 Bridgeport. We also won this house at 24 Mill Street in a lottery that the region of Waterloo held for some vacant houses that they owned. And yes, I did have to answer a skill testing question. I'm not sure I've ever been that nervous about simple arithmetic in my entire life. I don't remember the question. It wasn't that hard, but I was so nervous. In 2022, a different kind of partnership led us to amalgamate with Spruce Lawn Apartments for seniors in St. Jacobs. And in 2023, we completed construction of a 28-unit addition onto the existing 30-unit building. We also changed our name to Beyond Housing. Which brings us to the present, a 20-unit apartment building or townhouse project in Kitchener on Frederick Street in partnership with Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. Picture on the left is how it looked yesterday. Winter has not been our friend this year. And on the right, how it will look this fall. And we've continued to hold our annual bike-a-thon, and if we include Martin's 85th birthday ride from a couple of years ago, this small but mighty event has now raised over $1 million for new affordable housing in Waterloo Region. This year, Martin's final ride as an active fundraiser. He set an ambitious personal goal of $113,000, which would see him ride off into the sunset with a total lifetime sponsorships of $500,000. So my invitation to everyone is that you can be as generous this year with Martin as you can without fear that he's going to be asking you again next year. I will be. So in 25 years, soon to be 278 homes for almost 500 people. In closing, I will ask each of you the same question, starting with Rick. When you reflect on 25 years, reaching back to those first conversations of the working group, what are your thoughts now?
I think we knew this community was generous, and they didn't disappoint. Menno Homes found a values-rooted recipe early on. Keep on making the bread.
So I'm going to say something we haven't really identified explicitly today was being opportunistic. When you have a quest and reach for the stars, you have to be opportunistic. And that's what I'm remembering. All the good results from being opportunistic.
And in some of the material that was sent out by Dan, there's a picture of another circle, a blessing of another project that we did, I think it was Elmira. And I was given this bowl that is someone scattering seeds after that. And it was given to me by the Redikoff. So not only do they pose hard questions about what you need to do, but they support, love, and care for us into who this organization is today. And I think that is the value, is that Dan is a magnificent leader, fantastic board and staff, but we need everybody here to continue to grow those seeds of possibility for future people to be housed in our region. So I'm so grateful to know each and every one of you. Thank you.
And for me, the theme that runs through from the very first project is around partnership and collaboration. Right from the first project where you partnered with the church to where we are now with Woolwich with Women's Crisis Services, everyone in between. I don't think there's a project here that hasn't involved some level of partnership with other community agencies or the people in this community here, all of you somehow. So we are stronger together. We can do more that way. And 25 years, it'll be interesting and exciting to see what the next 25 years holds for us. So thank you for sharing. So what does the road ahead look like for Beyond Housing? As noted by Chip, this fall we will have 278 homes and approximately 450, pushing 500 people calling a Beyond Housing apartment or home or house their home with access to safe, affordable housing. And as I said earlier, and I'll do a bit of a recap here now, Phase 2 at Bridgeport and Lancaster is still in the works. We know that government funds flow to shovel-ready projects, and Phase 2 is certainly shovel-ready. Most recently, we responded to a very short-notice request for proposals with less than a week to respond. And although we weren't successful with that, it's that last-minute sort of funding that Phase 2 here is well-positioned to respond to. In Elmira, we are moving forward with planning and design for a low-rise 30-unit apartment building on the site of the former Kiwanis House next to the Woolwich Memorial Centre. The goal is to have that project also shovel-ready by this fall. And immediately adjacent to Waterloo Mennonite Homes, we are moving forward with planning and design for a multi-partner redevelopment of WK United Mennonite Church at 15 George Street. It is still in the early stages, but again, the goal is to be shovel-ready approximately 1 year from now so that we can create 75 affordable homes in downtown Waterloo, just steps away from an ion station. And back to Elmira, Very early stages, but we are putting the pieces in place so that one day we will be able to redevelop a portion of the Elmira Mennonite Church location, adding a 60-unit apartment building to some underutilized space. Lots of dreams, lots of plans. But the road ahead does include some questions. How and when will funding come from Build Canada Homes, the new federal agency replacing CMHC? We don't yet know what that looks like, but we're waiting. We know that they want portfolios of projects, and I think what you can see here is a whole basket of things that we can present to them to say, we're ready to move forward. Are you ready to move with us? And top of mind right now for developers in Waterloo Region are questions related to our water system capacity. So our approach has been to continue to move forward so that we are well positioned with shovel-ready projects when, as we expect, this issue is resolved. So with that, on behalf of the board and staff, and most importantly, the people who call a Beyond Housing property their home, thank you for coming. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your interest in our work. Please feel free to stay afterwards, enjoy some refreshments, some conversation after the meeting. There are some coffee cups back there. After you've enjoyed your coffee cup, please take it home. That way we won't have to wash them. And there's other swag there as well. It's cold outside, so make sure you grab a toque or something else if you want. You're welcome to stay as long as you want as we celebrate 25 years. About half an hour, 45 minutes from now, the board will be stepping out for a board meeting, but please enjoy the time here, stay, and thank you for 25 years of helping us respond to the need for affordable housing right here in Waterloo Region.